Hey everyone, welcome to Food Talk Live. I am so excited because I get to chat with Kelly Carlisle, the founder and executive director of Acta Non Verba, a youth urban farming project in Oakland, California. She is also a veteran of the United States Navy and is active in the Farmer Veteran Coalition. First, Kelly, thank you so much for your service, both as in the Navy as well as a farmer. You've been on the front lines of lots of things, so thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
So the first question I have been asking folks as a way to get to know them is what is your favorite food memory? And I'm sure you have a lot from being both a farmer and in the Navy.
Right. Um, I think my favorite food memory is when my child and I discovered that food could be grown and that we could eat it. It was one thing to grow the food, but then it was a whole other thing to actually eat the food that we grew.
Sure.
Because I had this whole feeling like it doesn't have a sticker on it. It can't be any good.
Right.
So, just us like, both kind of daring each other to eat, the tomatoes that I grew in a container on our back patio was really, really
That,
funny.
that's fantastic. That's a great story. So, acta non verba means deeds, not words. And I'm wondering why you decided to call the organization and the farm, that. Why is that important?
Sure. A couple of reasons. One is that, as you mentioned, I was in the Navy, and so I was kind of looking for the Navy's Semper Fi, like what the Marines have.
Right.
And what I discovered was that the Navy either has none or they have 15. So I scrapped that idea, and the closest that I could come to a motto for the military or for the Navy in Latin was Acta Non Verba, and it's the motto of the Merchant Marines. And as you mentioned, it means deeds, not words. Um, Another reason why is because, when I founded the organization, there was a lot of think pieces going around about a almost 40% dropout rate of youth in the city of Oakland, as well as Oakland being listed as the fifth most dangerous city in the U.S. At the
Right.
time. And I, did some research to find out what was being done, who's doing work around these issues. Um, and there are many, organizations doing fantastic work, but I wanted our organization to really live our values of don't talk about it, be about it, deeds,
Yeah.
not words. The think pieces are great to bring awareness to things, but what are folks actually doing about them?
Absolutely. I think that's so important. There's a lot of talking and not as much doing as there could be. So I love that motto. I love that name. Can you walk us through what Acta Non Verba does? What are your initiatives?
Sure. So we have three farms in the city of Oakland that are run by youth age 5 to 15. The kids plant, harvest, and sell the produce that we grow. 100% of those dollars are placed into individual savings accounts for the kids that participate. Um, so that's one initiative, one way that we uh, meet those goals. Is our CSA. We have a year-round CSA program. When I founded the organization, I thought kids would just want to farm like I want to farm, like that they would find it as fun and as like exciting as I did to come out and
Sure.
see how things had grown over the day. But what we realized is that, and especially in the age of like, digital entertainment, we had to do more. And so we founded a camp. So we have Camp A&V that runs all 4 seasons, 1 week in the spring, 8 weeks during the summer, 1 week during Thanksgiving break, and 2 weeks during winter break, to really give kids, to expose them to a bunch of different things that have the um, they have the power to access, right? So we go on
Right.
field trips, we go camping, in usual years, hikes. This year we had planned to do archery and axe throwing for the first time. So
Oh, fun.
yeah, yeah, we had big plans, but COVID-19. So now all of our programs are online,
Sure.
and we're doing pretty well.
So there are a lot of organizations that work with youth to teach them how to farm and teach, the go beyond that, sort of teaching leadership skills. But the individual savings account component of this is very unusual as far as I know. I mean, I haven't heard of it before. Can you talk more about that and why that's important to really empower kids to have their own resources?
Of course. So, in 2010, when I founded the organization, it was right around the same time former San Francisco Mayor Gavin Newsom started the kindergarten to college program. And he started that program based on a study that said that kids are 6 times more likely to attend college if there's a savings account dedicated to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I messed around and read the comments on, all of the press releases and news stories about it. And what struck me is the idea that um, folks really believe that children have to earn what they get. That, you know, children as young as 5, because Newsom's program started with kindergartners, that kids as young as 5 years old need to earn their way to having these savings accounts. And so I wanted to create a program where kids could invest in themselves rather than,
Yeah.
having to think about think about farming and think about like children actually having to work to earn their place in this world. Rather, they would learn, they would, have fun, and they would be able to take these funds and put them towards their future. And whether that's a future in higher education or a vocation, or even just learning more about something that they're passionate about, our program makes sure that folks have access to those things.
That's so great. I mean, I think that idea of investing in themselves and not having, not asking others to invest in them, that's where the power comes from in so many ways when you're able to like communicate that. Can you talk about how kids have used, so you've been around 10 years, so I imagine you've
Yeah.
watched your youth grow up and go on to other things. Can you share some of those stories?
Well, some of our youth, I mean, our oldest youth now is about 15. And so
Okay.
what happens is as they come up through our program, we begin to hire them on as, junior counselors, as counselors, and, for our after school programs and things like that. So no one has graduated from high school quite
Got
yet.
it.
And, we're very clear that the funds can be used for tutoring. They can be used for standardized testing prep, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so we're still gathering ideas to show the youth what they can use their funds for.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting though, because I think, going to college is great. It's not for everyone, but if you can invest in other things that, help further whatever you decide to go into, that's really exciting to me. Can you talk about how you get parents involved as well? Because I'm sure, there's maybe some skepticism at first, or maybe some like, why are you putting this into a savings account? Why can't my kid just have this? But how are
Right.
parents involved in the project?
Sure. So all of our projects, so no child has ever been turned away for lack of funds to our programs. We do ask families, to volunteer in different ways, whether that's chaperoning or helping out on the farm, or, again, in normal years, we have cooking class 3 times a week. And so
Sure.
the parents come through and help in that way. And yeah, sometimes there is skepticism. I think that we are working with our youth to get the parents involved, right? So if we tell a child that, there's $700 just waiting for you, you got to get your mom to fill out those papers, like
Yeah.
they're our biggest advocates. They're their own biggest advocates, like, mom, there's money for me to, use for piano lessons or
Yeah.
singing lessons and things like that. So yeah.
That's really exciting. So COVID, as you've mentioned, has really shifted like what you're able to do this year. What kinds of things are you doing online?
Well, within days of Gavin Newsom, or sorry, Alameda County's shelter in place order, we were able to shift our after school program online, and make sure that kids were still able to, be seen, be, folks that know their name, and any kind of tutoring they needed. And now we, again, within a month basically of realizing that the county wasn't going to open up, we moved our entire 8 week summer camp online. So we're still doing
Yeah.
cooking classes and dance classes, art classes, and we have science class for the first time ever,
Wow.
where the kids, yeah, it's really cool, where the kids have like they've done everything from learning about ecology to building a volcano that they get to erupt, in their own little
That's great.
backyard or kitchen or whatever. It's really cool. Um, yeah,
This combination of arts and food and agriculture, you mentioned dancing lessons at the camp. That's very like, it is more like a traditional camp, but also combining it with the cooking lessons and
yeah,
learning how to grow food. That's really wonderful and something that Food Tank, we think that that has a lot of power, that idea of combining the arts with food and agriculture. Why did you decide to do that?
well, I think first and foremost because it's fun,
Right, right.
having to always remember that I am always having to remember that children respond better if we've made it fun somehow. Also, there's a ton of history of the, dances being um, because of harvest, because of planting seasons,
Right.
like dance is a celebration of all of those things. Um, and, I guess finally, because the kids ask for it, like the kids want to dance, they want to cook. The cooking is, even online, is one of our most popular classes. They love being able to cook in their own homes and like give, feed their parents what they've made. And the parents like
Sure.
trust it because they've seen the kids making it and know, like
Yeah.
it's not sketchy. So yeah,
That's really cool. And I mean, it does put the culture back in agriculture. It gives that historical lesson, that I think, oh, since so many folks don't know the history of agriculture in this country for, reasons that have to do with systemic racism. We don't know, a lot of us don't know the true history of agriculture and why we grow certain things and why certain crops are grown here. So I think having that background and teaching kids things that they're probably not going to learn in school is really important.
exactly. Exactly. We work with schools, but we go beyond, the obviously beyond the school day, but beyond the regular curriculum to bring home the idea that like we're only here because of agriculture. We've only made it to, 2020 because of agriculture. Agriculture is rooted in all cultures, and all over the world people have to figure out how to feed themselves. So those are some of the things that we talk about during our farm time and during our cooking classes.
That's really great. That's awesome. Can we step back for a moment and talk about Oakland itself? I feel like Oakland is one of those cities that gets a bad rap. I live in Baltimore. I see a lot of hope here. I don't. There's a lot of stigmatization. People think of Baltimore and certain things come to mind. I feel like the same is true of Oakland in many ways. Can you talk about the issues that you're facing as the leader of this organization, what the kids are facing in terms of access and affordability to food, what their parents are facing sort of socioeconomically?
So I think that it's important to state that everyone in the communities that we serve are doing the best that they can. That,
Right.
everyone, especially, it's a challenge without a global pandemic, but with a global pandemic, everyone is just trying to keep up and trying to make sure that they're doing what's best for their families. So yeah, I think Oakland gets a bad rap, but I also think that you mentioned systemic racism. There are things that our local and state and federal government can do to make all of this easier, right? To make
Right.
all of these issues a little less of a burden on families that live in Oakland. We talk about living in under food apartheid in East Oakland, as opposed to a food desert. We know that
Right.
that grocery stores have disappeared out of our community. We know that the grocery grocery stores that are allowed to come in and want to come in aren't the best for us, right? They're not.
Sure.
um, they don't sell fresh produce. They don't sell culturally relevant foods.
Right.
So I think that you know in a time and an area of survival, that we're teaching our campers and students how to thrive and how to, be self-sufficient and how to become
Right.
the next generation of advocates and activists to, stand up and say, we deserve better than this. We deserve to have, the same kind of access as more affluent communities. I think that it's not unreasonable to ask for a grocery store in East Oakland, where our largest farm is. And to that end, Acta Non Verba is working with the East Oakland Grocery Co-op, which is just now starting its founding cohort and looking for a space to create a community worker owned cooperative, grocery cooperative.
That's really exciting. I love that you use the word thrive, because we talk a lot about, we just need folks to survive, blah, blah, blah. It's more about thriving. You want your community to thrive. You want children to grow up in a community that thrives. And I think you're right. It's not just about like, oh, let's put a grocery store in this community, because if it's not culturally relevant, if folks can't afford to shop there, the idea that there will be more worker owned cooperatives after COVID is really exciting to me, because, and so I'm wondering first, what does your ideal East Oakland look like post COVID-19? When we're on the other side of this, what do you hope that, the ways that things will transform, not just because of the pandemic, but what we've seen with the inspiring demonstrations and uprisings and the real force and power behind Black Lives Matter and other organizations who've really, worked so hard over the last several years to make sure that these issues are now front and center of every politician's mind.
Absolutely. Um, I think that in my ideal world, young people and their families will be able to raise their voice and demand change and demand um, some of the environmental racism issues are addressed. Some of the dumping issues are addressed. That I hope that through this worker-owned co-op, that folks have not just a pride of place, but that they feel empowered to say, we're invested in this community. We want this community to be uplifted, and we, as I said before, we deserve better. We deserve the same kind of protections, environmental, and in terms of food and food security, that everyone else does. I want our campers and students to be able to demand better food options at school, better cleaner streets, and
Sure.
just in general be able to advocate for themselves and their communities.
Well, and that kind of goes back to one of my first questions, which is you're not only teaching kids how to grow and how to harvest and sell, and and teaching them how to eat and cook, which are so important, but you're teaching them how to be sort of citizen advocates, or what we sometimes call citizen eaters, people who advocate on behalf of themselves and their food system, their socioeconomic system, their communities. That's what's really exciting about projects like these.
Yeah. uh we our campers and students have no problem at all letting us know that a certain segment of camp is boring, or, you know, community salad day was a complete failure. Like, nobody likes arugula, like they have no problem speaking to us to let us know,
Sure.
what they want and how they feel and what they want to see more of. We're trying to show what that looks like. Enough of you have said, we don't want to go to that beach anymore. Let's do, something else. And we responded to that. That's the power of your voice. That's the power of you standing up and, in the way of Acta Non Verba, speaking truth to power, right? You've said to us, to the executive director, like, what happened to breakfast? Breakfast used to be delicious. Now what is this? And so we responded.
I love it. It's
Breakfast
true
got better.
democracy. It's true
Exactly.
democracy. Well, and I
Exactly.
think if you look, I mean, uh, Food Tank is not supposed to be a political organization. We're non-biased. But if you look at what's happened over the last 6 months or the last 3.5 years, let's say, we've
Hmm.
lost our democracy. So teaching kids in whatever way that we can to bring it back and to make it real, to make it a living democracy. I think it's projects like these that do that. And again, it's not just about growing food, it's about growing that democracy.
Growing democracy, growing agency, growing a sense of self worth, a sense of worth in a country that absolutely finds in a country and in a society that absolutely finds ways of telling Black and brown children to be grateful for what you have rather than
Right,
what you deserve.
right, right. And yeah, that's where the real power comes from. I'm wondering if during your Navy days, could you have imagined being in the position that you're now in with 3 farms and however, like, dozens and dozens of kids, leading them to this kind of space?
Not even a little bit. I think about it very often, like I learned a lot of lessons in the military, and those have definitely helped me build this organization to where it is now, make some of the partnerships that we have now. But when I was active duty or in the reserves, this was not at all what I thought that I would be doing. Like, I, I didn't ever think about food, which is why when I learned learned that food was grown, it was like mind blowing. Like, this is a whole thing that happens in the world. While I'm
Sure.
on board a ship, people are growing food and feeding people. This is amazing. So yeah, no, this was the furthest thing from my mind.
That no, I mean, I think that's really cool because you weren't a farmer before you got into this,
No.
and that's, I think that's truly amazing. That you were learning from scratch.
Yep. From literal scratch. Like, I definitely I tell folks the story about going to the nursery that I bought my tomato starts from and yelling at the clerk that sold me because I was like, you sold me the wrong stuff. I thought I was growing tomatoes. All I have is this giant bush with all these little yellow flowers all over it. Like, take
That's
it back.
awesome.
She's like, she laughed at me and I was like, oh, she's like, oh wait, you're serious, and had to tell me
Oh
that
wow.
the flowers would be the fruit. And then I went down the list of things that were flowering. Is that true with cherries? How about apples? It
Oh my
was
gosh.
really cool.
That that's awesome though. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the Farmer Veteran Coalition. It's an organization that I admire very much because of its ability to bring recently returned veterans into the food and agriculture space, to use it as a place of healing in a lot of ways, to use it as sort of their next career. How did you get involved?
I attended an event, like, when I first started Acta Non Verba. I don't even think that we really had access to the land that we're on now. When I attended this event, it was actually Rue Matt from Outdoor Afro invited me to this event, and it was a slow food event, and the Farmer Veteran Coalition had like a little table there. I think they had just started too. Like, maybe they were a year old, and a couple of representatives there. And I couldn't believe that, like, that this organization existed and that I was in a place where, I could meet these folks. And I walked up to the table and I was like, I'm a farmer. I'm a veteran. and, and they gave
It's
me the
cool.
information and followed up with me. And, they've been such a wonderful advocate and partner. And, they had the first ever Empowering Women Veterans Conference, I think in 2012. And I still have friends that I consider my sisters that I met there, women that farm and ranch. And, the one of the great things about the Farmer Veteran Coalition is that you don't have to actively be farming, right? Like you just have to be interested in farming as a
Right.
veteran. They have members that make mead, that raise honeybees, that, like I said, my friend Mickey is a rancher up in Oregon, who grows these heritage sheep, like these old Navajo churro sheep that are just
Wow.
insanely beautiful. And, she's keeping that culture alive. My friend Althea is a sixth generation farmer on her family's ancestral land in Brunswick, Georgia, Gilliard Farms. These are connections that I would have never made if it weren't for the Farmer Veteran Coalition. And because of how much they do nationwide, my experience and my experience, and from what I've seen, everyone who comes into the Farmer Veteran Coalition's like nebula end up coming up. They end up being with different resources,
Sure.
connections to government and private folks that are interested in veterans farming. Yeah, it's just been a really wonderful partnership. They're amazing. And Michael O'Gorman, the founder, is like one of my favorite people in life.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really amazing. And I do think we've talked to them a lot. We've, featured them on Food Tank. They're just an amazing organization, bringing so many different folks together and doing it so well and helping to make those connections and give out those resources. There's nothing really more important than that. I bet a lot of your kids that you work with, the youth that you work with, will watch this later on Facebook or elsewhere. What is your message to them? This is a really crazy time to be a kid. I can't imagine being, 5 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old and going through this pandemic. And I've watched my stepson sort of try to figure it out and, ask
Yeah.
questions and that kind of thing. What's your message to them?
And I think all children need to know that they're brilliant, that they are wonderful, that they are worthy of the best this life has to offer, that they have within them the power to make their dreams come true,
Yeah.
and to change the way that their communities look, the way that their circumstances look. I think that this is a really tough time. And, I think I would, to quote Mr. Rogers, like,
Give us just 1 second while Kelly gets her sound going again, maybe. I love anyone who quotes Mr. Rogers.
are you
There you go. Yes, I'm
okay?
still
Great.
here. You were just quoting Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, look for the helpers. And if there are, things that you need, things, support, if it's, experience that you would like to try. My daughter wants to do 1,000 different things. And I spend half a day every day trying to figure out how to get those things for her. Look for the
Sure.
helpers, look for your teachers and people that you admire and trust, and say, I need help with this. I need to I'd like to try horseback riding, and I promise you
Right.
somebody's going to try to figure out how to make that happen. That's one thing that we talk about a lot at Acta Non Verba is, how can we get this child into the other camp, or how can we get this
Sure.
child a tutor for this thing that they're not doing well at, we, if you look for the helpers
Absolutely.
and adults, more times than not, there's somebody there to help.
That's great. And I love what you said about making kids feel worthy, that they have this within themselves to change the world and to live out their dreams. I'm sure that because of COVID-19, you need more resources than ever and donations. Can you tell folks how to get in touch with you?
Sure, thank you. So our website is A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, V as in Victor, farm, FARM.org. And if you go to anvfarm.org/donate, that's wonderful. We definitely need all the donations that we can get. But there's also ways to volunteer, and we're constantly trying to think of ways to have folks engage with us and help us out. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We'll have the website available at foodtamp.com and on our social media. Kelly, you've been a pleasure to talk to. I wish you the best with all of this amazing work. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope folks will join us on our next episode when I'll be talking to Marcel Van Oyen from Grow NYC. Kelly, please stay safe and well.
Thank you. You do the same. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.